Hello and welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast. Today we have another incredible guest, and this guest has actually been an idol of mine, someone that I've looked up to for many, many years for a number of different reasons. She is incredible at articulating messages around health, body image, the way that we can eat and relationship with food compared to what society says, but also she's got some serious level banter, which I absolutely fucking love. So Emilia, welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast.
Thank you so much. No one's ever said I've got banter at the start of a podcast, so I am actually buzzing with that. Thanks.
They surely don't know. They don't know you then, clearly.
Yeah, well, let me clarify. They're not saying I don't have banter. They're just saying it's not a highlight for them, which is the real shame, obviously.
Yeah, they clearly don't have banter themselves. That's why.
Exactly.
So can we start by you telling the listeners a little bit about what you do, who you are, and all of those wonderful things?
Sure. So I am a nutritionist and I work predominantly with people who are looking to improve their relationship with food or their relationship with their bodies in some way. That's what I do in a nutshell. I run a team of coaches, of psychotherapists, dietitians, nutritionists, personal trainers, and we predominantly work in the fitness space to try and unpick a lot of the conditioning and diet culture rules that have infiltrated fitness, whilst also, of course, having an understanding that it's okay to have aesthetic goals and strength goals and that still being an important part of our life. So that's where we kind of fit. And I also run a nutrition course with Emilia Gordon that's specifically for personal trainers looking to improve the way that they coach nutrition with their clients. It's very holistic, it's very compassionate, and predominantly it's very evidence-based. And I'm also a mentor for personal trainers who are, again, very much in a similar space with their clients.
Incredible. And why did you decide to create this or these things?
I think it's selfish. The more I talk about this, the more I'm like, I'm just caring about myself. But realistically, I struggled with disordered eating for a lot of my life. I was like the classic millennial. I had Kate Moss all over my walls. I was, just restricted all the time. I was very, very, very lean. And I also struggled with binge eating, and certainly in my parts of my life struggled with binge eating disorder. Didn't know what it was, didn't have any help. And the only time I did go for help for the doctors once, it was unhelpful, really unhelpful actually. And that's not reflective of all, medical professionals. That was my experience. So I was super academic. I did a nutrition master's, I did a PhD in physiology, I taught nutrition at uni. I was super academic, but at the same time, struggling with my own relationship with food, I found the gym, and of course I found competing as this way to glorify my disordered eating habits. And I thought, oh well, prepping and bulking and doing this and winning trophies, which I did win trophies, felt like a step up from disordered eating. And so I kind of fell into that world. And then as I was in that world, I realized actually everyone here's got disordered eating and nobody's talking about it. This was like 2014 I first started competing. So that was when it was like meal plans and really, really bro culture. And, it wasn't even really, really flexible diet. And then it was really rigid. And I did my first show. I struggled with binge eating after it. And I just remember I had all the knowledge. I had a PhD, like I had the knowledge. I was like, why am I binge eating? Why am I feeling so much guilt? Why am I feeling like I have to compensate with extra movement? All of these things, no one told me this was going to happen. And so I started looking into the research around it. I started writing blogs about it, speaking to people in the competing world, and they were like, oh, this is me too. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why is nobody saying this? And it's, I think it's a big shame space. And what's amazing is that now we've definitely moved on in the fitness space, and you'll have seen this where we're having these conversations and it's a lot more, people are a lot more open. But at that time, nobody even spoke about the term relationship with food. And I was just like, I'm just going to figure this out for myself. And as I do this and I share the research, I'll talk about it online and hope that it helps people. And then in the end, this massive influx of people were like, oh, me too. And I was like, oh, this is actually a thing. And so it kind of came from that, really.
Okay, that's fascinating. And so if that was in 2014 that you were competing, when did you start to bring this through to the public and social media and stuff?
So I was on social media then, but I was doing the classic getting your arse out and, you know, that type of things, like oversharing. Just, I mean, it's still on there, so I advise anyone not to scroll back, like beyond maybe like, well, actually, just don't scroll back past like 2 years. I think that's the safest bet. So I've always spoken about it, but for me, like I started coaching in about 2015, I think, kind of part-time, and I was working with people actually in the bodybuilding space, and I sort of was trying to figure out how I could help these people, but I was still prepping people, which felt a little bit weird to me. I didn't quite know what I was doing, like where I should fit really. And then really I quit my job when I was in 2017, I think 2018, I quit my job to go full time. And that was really when I found my space of where I need to be in this industry and where I can have a helpful voice. And then since then really is when I've been really hammering it, which is only 5 years ago. But before then I was kind of in that space. I just wasn't as, you know, heavy into it as I am now, where I just talk about it all the time and, you know, write about it all the time and just, yeah, we'll talk about it to anyone that'll listen.
I love that. And it's interesting because I think sometimes from a business standpoint, we can have like strong passions and we want to talk about them all the time, but we expect it to be like an overnight thing, whereas actually it takes time. You've got to gain that credibility. So over that 5 years, have you noticed that people are opening up more to talking about the relationship with themselves, their body image and relationship with food? Have you noticed that shift?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously, like you said at the beginning, like I came and spoke to you before, and I just think it's amazing that, you know, we have a team of coaches like us. And I say a team of coaches like us, I mean like a group in this industry that are like, no, there are different ways to do things, and not feeling like it has to be this kind of hardcore diet culture, this rigid way of doing things. I think I love to see men talking about it and other genders talking about it, but I do love actually that women are like, no, like this is not good enough for us anymore, you know. And we, you know, we, like I said, we work with all genders, but it's mostly women. And I know some great male coaches in this space, but it's mostly women that have the loudest voices that are like, no, we're not going to, you know, just spend our lives trying to be as small as possible anymore. We're starting to realize now that there's more to life than being as small as you possibly can and keeping yourself as small as possibly can and not taking up too much space. It's like, no, like we're here to use our voices, we're here to be strong, we're here to be healthy. And I think now too there's much more of an understanding of what health actually is. You know, it's we know that fitness as a standalone is not actually health. It can form part of health, but a lot of us now know like that's actually not what health is. But then you've got sometimes the other side of the coin where people say, well, health isn't anything about your body and it's just about these other things. It's like, it's also not true. You know, like health is multifaceted. Health is social connection. Health is your fitness levels. Health is your nutrition. But health is also not just eating chicken and rice. That's actually unhealthy. Health is not being unable to socialize because you're scared of overeating. That's also not healthy. But at least in the past, for sure, and I don't know when you started, but for sure when I started, it was quote unquote healthy to just eat the same meals every day. Like it's and to say no to the cake. You're admirable if you're saying no to things. And it's like, no, that's actually not the healthiest way to live.
It is so true. And I've definitely, so as a PT, like I was a PT before I became an online coach, and I've been the person who I think I used to sell like body by buy shakes and stuff. And you know, when you're like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm like, I did the best I could with the tools I could at the time. And now I'm more than happy, a bit like you with your bum pics on Insta. You're happy to own it and just be like, through life, we evolve. So what you were saying then, you know, it kind of stood out to me that we are health coaches and we look at like acceptance, we look at people working through like the multifaceted approach. Then you've got maybe other trainers who are just about like chicken, rice, broccoli, like fuck hard, like all this kind of like ignore your whole life just to look like ripped. But then there's another side to it. There's many sides, but the one I want to talk to you about today is diets.
Okay.
So recently, you know, so people who join my program, on the surface, they generally want to lose weight. They generally feel unhappy in their clothes. as we go deeper into the journey, there's obviously a deeper why, and then there's the unspoken, unknown truths as well that, you know, we'll start to explore. But the people who join have either tried Cambridge, Slimming World. I actually had a Slimming World leaflet put through my door yesterday. I was like,
oh, burning it.
I've actually kept it on my table because I want to do a post on it. I'm like, right, it's £5 a week to fuck up your relationship with food. So I want to talk to you about it. Like, where do you stand currently on diets and people doing diets? And yeah, what is your view on it?
Oh, great question. So first of all, I think I would like to say that 90 to 95% of people that come to work with us at ETPHD coaching have a fat loss goal, and we support them if they still have a fat loss goal once they've worked on their relationship with food, and that's still something that's important to them. We will always support fat loss for them as long as it's not detrimental to their health. And I think realistically for me, that's the main stance that I have. It's, you know, I say she's your body. I like to think of your body as a she. It helps, I think, with how you treat her, how you respect her. If you have low self-worth and you say me, it's a lot harder to treat yourself well. So if I say that, it's just I'm fair to my body. But I think, you know, she's your body. If you want to diet, then that's completely your prerogative. If it's aligned with your values and what's most important to you and it's not detrimental to your health, then great. There are awful diets around, very restrictive diets that involve, like, you know, cutting out food groups or demonizing certain food groups, or, you know, asking you to fast for hours at a time, which, when that's not helpful for your life, ask you to eat away from your family. All of these things, they're not helpful. But a healthful diet, for sure, is fine. I think I always have a bit of a sticking point where people have a fat loss goal, they're healthy, they're in a healthy body, they're fit, they've got a great life balance, and then they have a fat loss goal too, which ultimately will take away from other parts of their life, because I hate the narrative that you can do it all. I hate it. I actually think it's really detrimental to us as women to say, like, you can have it all. You can earn this much money, run your own business, have a family, have children, support your siblings, have all of these friends. Like, you have to sacrifice things at different times of your life, right? And the same goes for dieting. You can follow a really helpful, healthful diet that's inclusive, allows you to socialize, but you will have to sacrifice something, whether it is slight food preoccupation when you're at work because you're hungry. You're sacrificing a little bit of your quality of work there. Or whether it's actually you always have a family dinner at the weekend and it's pizza, and you actually swap out some of that pizza for salad. Like, you are making a sacrifice, and that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. But I do question often, you know, what are you looking for if you're not looking for health? Is it that you feel like you want to get back to a body that you used to have because you remember feeling a certain way at that time? Often we put things onto our bodies that's actually got nothing to do with our bodies. Probably at that time you felt good because you were following a routine, you were in the gym all the time, you were happy in a relationship, lots of other things, but we attribute it always to our body. And so we're kind of seeking that feeling. If it's like, do you know what, I just want to feel a little bit leaner on the beach, then, like, good for you. But I think we often think that if we change our body, because of diet culture, because of the way that this has been pushed on us as we've grown up, like, the leaner you are, the more successful, the more attractive, the more wanted that you're going to feel, the happier you're going to feel. So if we're feeling low, if we're feeling like we are trying to find a purpose or something like that, it's natural, because of our society, that we go straight to our bodies. And I see this with a lot of people I work with. You know, things will be going fine, and then maybe something happens with their job, or things feel uncertain, or they're moving house, or their relationship ends. It's like, oh, I feel like going on a diet. It's like, interesting. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Interesting. And it's like, what is it that you feel like you want from a diet? What are your overarching feelings right now? And your body is generally not the place to do that. It's just that we feel that it is, because we've been told for the last, 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years that it is.
Fascinating, because if you think about it, like, so many people will be like, but I just want to lose weight. Whereas when you delve into that deeper why, a lot of the time it's nothing, like you say, to do with their physical being.
Exactly that. And look, we're not here to patronize you. You know, if that's genuinely the thing that you want, that's fine. Like, I prefer my body a little bit fatter, sometimes a little bit smaller, sometimes I don't really change it. My body just fluctuates, but I have a few preferences. I just don't spend my time changing it because I've got, you know, other things to do. So you are absolutely allowed to have those preferences. It's just, like you said, really delving into why, and not just your why, but also how does this action of pursuing a diet align with everything that I say is important to me. And so, for example, if you have values like connection, family, health, career development, kindness, whatever it is, think, okay, well, how would fat loss support these things, and how might fat loss move me away from these things? And you will find it very hard to stick to a diet if it's going to move you away from these things, and it's going to make you less happy if it's moving you away from these things. So I think it's just important with any diet is to check in with yourself. And, you know, and something we've spoken about before is the relationship of dieting with disordered eating. And so you have to be really mindful of that. A diet's not going to cure your disordered eating habits. I can tell you that 100%. It might kind of put a plaster on them for 8 weeks. But if, let's take overeating, for example, a lot of people will overeat and they'll say, I need to lose fat, I'm overeating, and then they'll go on a diet and they'll go on a, you know, one of those 8-week transformation type plans, whatever. Even if it's a good version of that, you might not overeat for 8 weeks, but I can tell you what's going to happen at the end of it, and I can tell you that you're probably going to feel worse at the end of it than you did at the beginning. And so again, it's just about checking in with, okay, realistically, what are my eating habits right now? Do I have a good relationship with food now? Because for any diet to be successful, in my opinion, and with all the work that we do with our clients, you work on your relationship with food first. And then it's like, okay, now what is the right thing for you to do? How are you coming at this from a place of body respect, body love, body nourishment? That could still be fat loss, but actually at this point, maybe now it's not, because you've sorted out all your relationship with food. So it's about, I don't know, I think it's a lot about self-awareness, right? Of where you're at right now and what you're really looking for and what's really important to you.
Yes. Yeah. But again, I think we're conditioned and brainwashed because people are like, you know, I will be more accepted by society if I'm smaller, and I've just been wanting to lose weight for so long. And something that came into my mind then when you were talking about, you know, values and stuff like that is we don't allow ourselves the time to actually go, right, how, so one thing that we do in coaching club is we're like, how can we make this long term? How can we make this, you know, something that you're not just going to gain and then lose? Because I've had people join the club who have been on other 12-week shreds and stuff like that with other people who are super successful, but then they constantly live in scarcity because over that 12-week challenge, they've achieved the thing that they said they were going to achieve. Then they lose it all, like basically put the weight back on, can't maintain the habits. So they're constantly in this place of like chasing for something that they've achieved, but then they can't attain it. So then they chase and chase again. And I'm like, okay, so now we need to, like you say, go back a few steps, repair relationship with food, get you in a good place, and then look at, right, sustained results. Because that looks so different to a 12-week plan.
Do you know what? And do you know what's really dark? This is really dark, but there's a couple of people that I've worked with who have come to me and they're, you know, have been struggling with their own relationship with food and really like really struggling. And then I'll go on social media and I'll see the real coaches using their transformation pictures as ways to sell their program. And I think that is vile. You look at these transformation pictures and you see this transformation over 8 weeks or whatever, and it's like, then these people come to me because they can't keep food in their house because every time they do, they overeat and they end up crying. And I think that side of diet, like that's diet culture as opposed to diet, right? But it's just hideous. And you can go on a diet phase if you want, but like you said, it's a diet phase. That phase might be longer for someone who maybe has more body fat to lose for their health. But for some other people, if you've got maybe 5 kilos to lose, that's a short program or short phase of your life, and then it's about maintaining it. You're never going to maintain it if you don't deal with your relationship with food in the first place. But it is hard, I think, and well, I know that it is. You know, people will apply to work with us multiple times before they start, and it might be similar for you, where they'll give everything else one last try, just one last try of the diet, just one last try of doing a meal plan. And then if that doesn't work, if I just can't get my willpower to work this one time, then I'll come back to you. Because it's a daunting thing to say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to work on my relationship with food. I'm going to be kind to myself. And you know what, I'm going to allow myself to keep these foods in the house. That's a really scary thing to do. But like you said, you don't want to be, 90 years old, stuck to MyFitnessPal, or still like, sat there because you can't move because you're 90 years old and you're slightly more immobile, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm slightly more immobile, maybe I should eat less. Like you don't want to be in that situation. It's like, you may as well do it now. Sometimes I work with clients in their 20s and I'm like, oh, I'm quite jealous of you, because I, like, as much as I'm grateful for everything that's got me to this point, and I wouldn't change anything, I think, oh, if I just started my relationship with food out in my 20s, and what would things be like? It would just be wild.
And I think as well, like when you think about what you've just said there, people think that, okay, I'm going to work on my relationship with food. It's going to take 8 weeks and then it's done. But like anything that I believe in life that is meaningful and that is quite a big process, but sometimes we disrespect that and we don't kind of fully understand it. It takes constant work. It takes constant nurturing. And something, so when I've listened to your podcast, and I've obviously been inside your program as well. And is it 7 steps to food freedom? 7 steps to,
Oh gosh, that might be an older one. I'm not sure. Which is concerning for myself.
I think the first step is like give yourself unconditional permission to eat.
Of course, yeah.
And so I've made that as like a suggestion to some of my clients who are struggling with this, like kind of like overeating, undereating. I've been like, well, first thing, like, let's give this a go. Let's give this an experiment. Give yourself like unconditional permission to eat. And they're like, fuck no. Absolutely not. I'm not going to do it, because they're terrified.
Yeah, it's a very, very scary thing when every time you've eaten a cinnamon bun, and I use cinnamon bun because I saw on the podcast yesterday and I was like, oh, that's my reference food for the week. It's a very scary thing if every time you've eaten a cinnamon bun, you've eaten 4 cinnamon buns, and you've got no evidence to say that you can eat one and that's okay. Of course, it's going to be a really scary thing, but there are ways of incorporating in where you are super mindful, where you do maybe just buy one at a time, and you have it when you're not super hungry, and you've not restricted all day to quote unquote allow or justify that cinnamon bun. And there are ways to incorporate it in, and you have to do that in order to develop your trust in that food. And it might be simple saying, okay, well, I can live my life without cinnamon buns, but it's like, okay, well, really, realistically, is it only one food that you have this relationship with? Or is it all biscuits? Is it all cakes? Is it all donuts? And then it's like, okay, well, is that realistic to the rest of your life? Or is it going to be every time you go on holiday, you overeat, or maybe you binge eat, and then you feel guilt and shame for the next however many months and try and lose weight that you've gained? Or is it that maybe you don't have children yet, and actually then you have children and they want to have snacks in the house? What are you going to do then? Are you going to just not have the snacks in the house? Or are you going to tell your kids that you can't have those foods? And again, there's no blame or shame around this, but it is very much about thinking like you're playing the long game. Hopefully we're all here on this, like in this world for a long time, and there are people that we can have impact on around us that we want to model good relationships with food, and not just for other people, but for ourselves. But yeah, unconditional permission to eat is a really scary one. And I think I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago who actually struggled with binge eating, and she went to a therapist, and the therapist, this was in a different country, and the therapist said, okay, asked her like, what food do you binge on? And I can't remember what they said. Let's say cinnamon buns, right? She said, I want you to go out and buy cinnamon buns every day. You're going to go out and buy cinnamon buns and you're going to leave them in your house. And she was like, fuck no, I'm not doing this. And she said, nope, this is your one task. And she went out and she said, and I overate and I overate and I overate. And then one day I was like, oh my God, I'm done with cinnamon buns. And she said, okay, next food, you're going to do this. And did the same thing again. And for her, that worked. She was really pleased. She overcame her struggles with that type of therapy. And there are different versions of this kind of unconditional permission and this concept, because the idea obviously is that the novelty does wear off, because it does. And we know that, but it's just that scary phase that you have to get through in the first place. And I'm not recommending anyone does that, by the way. And there are different ways to do it, but it's just, I think, a reminder of like, you're going to have to practice unconditional permission to eat at some point. There are just different ways of doing it.
And the way I see it, and this, you may disagree, but I see it as a skill. It's a skill that we haven't been taught yet. And relationship with food, I even think relationship with self, obviously it goes deeper, but it's things that we are not taught from childhood.
Yeah.
We're usually taught the opposite. So actually we just, instead of it being like, oh, I'm going to jump into this unconditional permission to eat. Like I remember when I had a therapy session, it was just after a photo shoot, and my therapist was like, Sash, we've got red flags. You need to fucking get off this bus right now because you are heading in not a good way. I think it was that moment, I was like, right, Emilia Thompson, let's fucking go. I had on my headphones, I walked to my local park. There was an ice cream van, and I sat there on like a Tuesday with an ice cream, like, this is fucking weird. But over time, the more I did it, the more, like, now I'm like, I will have what I want when I want. And I also love how you reference, like, give your kind of like internal, like, a hug, give your organs a hug. And I love that. But now what I want to do, if it's okay with you, is talk about you. So in this podcast, we talk a lot about living a free and fulfilled life. So do you feel like you live a free and fulfilled life?
Yeah, I really, really, really do. In fact, my ex-boyfriend said to me the other day, he messaged me and said, I've had 5 people say to me now that your ex has turned into a hippie. And I was like, oh, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. I do. I'm fulfilled because I know what's important to me. And I genuinely do. And I'm lucky, I think, that I can live a life that's aligned with my values and what's important to me. And I work really, really hard at doing that. And you'll know, as a business owner, as an example, where I could easily compare myself to other business owners and friends and think I should be doing more, I should be working more, and I should be earning more, and all of these things. And I could easily fall into that kind of capitalist, like, hustle culture vibe. And then I come back to my values, and I like, okay, well, love's a value of mine, connections, value of mine, and family. And that means I have to work less. That means I have to sacrifice some of those things in order to do what's important to me and spend time with family or partner or whatever that is. And so I'm really, really intentional with that, so that whenever I get those feelings of whether it be scarcity or comparison or something like that, I can come back to myself and go, okay, actually, no, that doesn't align with me. And that allows me to, I think freedom comes with, like, that choice of knowing that you're choosing what you want to do, and you're not feeling like you're a victim or you're like part of a societal, like, norm that you don't want to be a part of. Everything I do, I'm choosing to do it. I don't say yes to all things. I don't say yes to all podcasts. I don't say yes to every work commitment. I learned how to say no, and I think all of those things mean that I have a freedom to choose every day. And genuinely, I wake up every day and I'm tired, but I'm like, I'm so buzzing to do everything that I do every day, even if it's a day off or a day of work. I don't really mind. So yeah, I do feel like I am. I feel very lucky that I am, to be honest. I feel very rich in my life, which is not a financial thing for me. Like, it's not a financial thing, but it's not, top of my list when I say rich.
Love it. Have you always been like that? So if we're talking about the being a business owner, the kind of like pull to overwork, the pull to give more, like, how have you, say if you have been kind of like falling into that trap before, how have you then patched it back together to get to where you are today?
Yeah. Do you know what? I was thinking this when we were talking about cinnamon buns, again, to bring cinnamon buns back to the conversation, because I think it's really easy to look at someone at some point in their life and say, oh, I wish I could be like that. And I don't mean everyone should want to be like me, but there's certain parts, maybe my food relationship, but honestly, when I was in my 20s, like, I was binge eating really, really badly. Up until I was 35, I picked awful men to date. And I'm only 37, so that's not that long ago, until I was, 2019 was 4 years ago. So until I was 33, I was overworking. And in 2019, I made a really conscious choice. I said, I want to have babies. I want to have a partner. I need to spend more time dating and having fun and traveling and doing all of these things that my job will allow me to do if I choose to do it. And that was a very intentional choice, because I'm Virgo, I'm A-type, my natural tendency is to overwork. It used to be to overexercise. I used to be unable to rest. It used to be to overeat. And it used to be pick emotionally unavailable men. And none of that, some of that served me well for a certain amount of time, right? To be honest, my overworking allowed me to get to the point where I am with my career, where I really love what I do, right? So I don't wish I'd changed it earlier in that sense. But a lot of the time food is like a tool that we use to self-regulate, to try and regulate our feelings, our emotions, our nervous system when we don't have other tools to our advantage. And sometimes when we let go of food, then we pick something else up: alcohol, work, whatever that may be. And so I definitely did have work and food as my ways of trying to self-regulate, and I started to let food go, and then work just became even more of a thing. And then I realized actually it's not that wasn't the problem, it's myself that was the problem, and I had to work on that. So I think some of this is also age. It's really easy for me to say, oh well, start meditating and do yoga and journal and look at your values, and all of these things are things I do. And I honestly think my life would be completely different if I didn't meditate. Like, it honestly transformed my entire life. But I'm also 37 now, and I've had enough crap men in my life to recognize I am picking crap men. I can now make a choice, which when I was 24, I had only picked, 3 bad men, or men with bad qualities. And so I didn't have enough experience to realize that I was the problem again, picking these people. So the same, I think, can be true in all different aspects of your life.
Yeah, that's so true. So would you say that that could be the same with all decisions?
Oh, I like to think that most things are a choice. There are some things that are outside of our control, for sure, and I'm a big proponent of practicing radical acceptance of the things that we can't control. And I have things in my personal life at the moment that I can't control. My little brother's very sick, and like I don't keep that secret, and I think I can't control that, but what can I control in this situation? I can control how I show up for my family at these times. I can control the suffering that comes with that. I can't control the pain, but I can control the suffering. And so I think I do like to think of most things as a choice and a decision. And the things that I can't control, I think then it becomes a case again, like I said, of letting those things, accepting those things as they are, and not trying to control the things that we can't control. I think a lot of our struggles come from trying to control things that are outside of our control. Well, just trying to control everything, let's be honest.
Yeah. Even to the weather, like
yeah,
I can't possibly go and get a walk because it's pissing it down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because when you said before that you realized that the kind of like common denominator, if you like, with your choice of men was you. And I was thinking like, okay, so could this be, say, some feelings that the listeners could be listening to? So whether it be the overworking and they constantly keep overworking and burning out, whether it be the binge eating, like, do you think that all of these lead back into the common denominator as you, and therefore the work that you need to do is with you, not the other things?
So yes, but not in a blame sense. I think
Yeah.
it's really important. Let's take binge eating as an example. Binge eating often has arisen to serve some sort of purpose for us, and it's often a problem with our emotional regulation. So we're unable to identify and respond to our emotions properly, so we turn to food, and it's really often a protective mechanism for us. So mine, as an example, was when I struggled when I was 16 with family dynamics, right? And it was a hard time for my family. And I'm really thankful to my binge eating now, because it protected me from feeling stuff that was really, really hard. And I didn't feel it till I was 31. And then that was a fun time. But until then, that was when I stopped binge eating. Realistically, I was like late 20s, early 30s. And so I think it's less about, it's definitely about you to work through, but not in a self-critical or a self-blame way, more in a curiosity and understanding way. Self-criticism gets us nowhere. It really doesn't. I spent 10 years calling myself an arsehole every time I binge ate. It didn't do anything for me. It just made me want to binge even more because I felt bad about myself. And I think we think that that's helpful, but it's not. So curiosity about yourself, your choices, your behaviors, your habits is the only way that you can change. And why do you feel like you overwork? Sometimes we'll think, oh, it's because I have to, because I need the money, or I have to because I've just got this much work to do, and I'm employed and this is what I have to do. But then it's like, okay, but have you communicated that this is physically impossible with the amount of work, with the amount of hours you've got? Have you set boundaries? Are you being a perfectionist and actually trying to do more than is required? Are you a yes person? I remember when I quit my old job at the uni, and my boss, who I loved, she said in the speech that she said when I left, she said, what I really love about you, Emilia, is that you're a yes woman. And now I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a yes woman. I want to be a yes when I want to be woman, or yes when it serves other people or myself well, but not like walkover yes women. And I worked far too long and far too hard, and I got really stressed and burnt out at that job, and I loved that job, and I loved her. So I think, yeah, again, I say this with the privilege right now of not having children, of owning my own business or my own businesses, and having a bit of freedom with these things. I recognize the privilege that I have with all of these things, but I do think it's important just to, you can't change anyone else. Stop trying to change other people's steps. Definitely don't date people that you want to change, but like, you can only really change your own behaviors and your own awareness. So you may as well just get curious about it, and from a really like a kind place of supporting yourself rather than getting frustrated about all the other stuff.
One kind of term that we use in the coaching club is get your lab coat on and be a scientist, go and experiment, just see how it goes.
I love that.
One word that you said, so when you were talking about that, then the word that was, or the two words that were in my mind were self-awareness. Because I do believe that a lot of the time we live at this million miles an hour, we're on that, treadmill of life, and we don't really stop to recognize, we just keep going through these default behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think that if we, like, without self-awareness, we obviously can't see what's going on. We can't see the binge eating or the causation for it. We can't see the fact that we're overworking, and the lack of boundaries could be kind of like helping the overworking to be happening. So what would you say for people who want to gain more self-awareness, who are like, oh yeah, like I feel like shit and I felt like shit for a long time, but I don't know what to do?
Yeah, it's really, really tough. And look, there are certain tools that you can use day to day or month to month that are really, really helpful. And those tools are things like journaling. Usually when I say journal, I'm sure you use this with, your clients use this, but sometimes journaling can feel really overwhelming because you think you have to write like, dear diary, today I did this. Like, it's not, honestly, journal whatever you want. Like, I used to just journal like what Brene Brown calls a shitty first draft of like, this is what happened and he said this and I did. There was no purpose to it. It was like, just get it out. And you can start your journaling with just getting whatever you want on that paper. You're never going to look at it again. Don't write it like someone's going to read it or you're going to look back on it. Just start to get things out of your head and onto paper. And over time, like, there are so many journal prompts online, I'm sure you give them, we've got some on my website, that just allow you to start having some direction. But start with some journaling. If therapy is accessible to you, and it's not accessible to everyone, I do recommend therapy if you're struggling with these things. It can be life-changing. Again, meditation is phenomenal. And you might think, well, I can't meditate because it's just, I've got too much going on in my head, so meditation's not for me. And actually, meditation is exactly for you, because it allows you, it encourages you just to sit with things as they are. Because ultimately, you're never going to figure out what's going on for you if you're always doing. If you're always doing, you're not sitting and being and giving space for things to come in and to start to actually get curious about things. The times that you do stop, you'll probably find that you're overthinking about what you've done or overthinking about what you have to do next, but you're not actually sitting and just allowing things to come to the surface, which can be a really, really scary thing. Sometimes when we allow things to come to the surface rather than feel them, we then turn to food to try and suppress them again, and then we fall into that cycle. But if you look at all of the major theories around emotional eating, they all come from the same place, which is emotional dysregulation. So you need to have self-awareness to understand the emotion, the dysregulation you're experiencing. And there's things like tools like the feelings wheel, where you can Google the feelings wheel and actually just start to say, okay, every day start checking in with how you feel. We're rubbish, especially British people. No offense, but we're crap. I'm good. I'm fine. How are you? Yeah. Like it's fine. Everything is fine all the time. And there's some cool evidence around just being able to name our feelings properly, helping to self-regulate. So you can do this with your family, of just, at the dinner table being like, okay, what's your feelings word for the day? And having that kind of conversation. It's great for your children's emotional literacy, but it's also great for you to, again, just start checking in with, what do I feel? How often, especially maybe as a busy mom, how often are you stopping and thinking, how do I feel today? What does this feel like in my body? What's the name of this feeling? You're probably not, because you're running around like a blue arse fly and putting everyone else before yourself. So I think, and self-awareness also, I think reading can be really great for self-awareness, although you're taking stuff in. Sometimes certain books will help you think about things in a different way. And so I think that can be really, really helpful as well.
Yeah, I love that. So many incredible ideas. And I went through a stint myself of not really reading, and I've started it again recently, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm home. So we've talked a lot about some of the kind of like struggles that you've had over the years. What would you say, if you're happy to share it, that you struggle with right now?
Oh, Right now, I struggle with, to be honest, prioritizing my values. So for reference, my boyfriend lives in America, my family live in Scotland, my little brother's sick, but great. I live in England, and my friends live all over. And so for me, I struggle with how to where and when and what to prioritize at different times. Because one of the, for me, the I'm quite good with self-compassion. I'm actually really quite good with it now because it's a practice, but where I struggle with it is with my family. I'm great with vulnerability, but I struggle with it with my family. That's my sticking point. And so for me, trying to navigate, family situations which are tough amongst trying to develop a relationship, which is a healthy relationship, whilst also maintaining my other friendships, is, for me, I find it quite tough. I'm always thinking about what is the right thing to do. Should I do the right thing for me? Should I do the right thing for my family? Should I do the right thing for my boyfriend? And then the selfish feelings that come with that sometimes. So I'm that, along with life admin, I always struggle with that, but I feel like that's a completely different point, just because I hate it. Yeah, so I think it's always hard when you've got values that are kind of sometimes contradictory, or things that are so important to you that you feel like they're on the same level and you have to prioritize one or the other. I think it's inevitable to feel a little bit like you're doing something wrong. So I'm trying to navigate that and the uncertainty that comes with some of my situations. I'm constantly living in a place of uncertainty these days, and that's a hard, like, oh yeah, I can see uncertainty is the worst thing. Uncertainty is horrible. And that's, for me, I'm learning for the last year or two, I've had to learn to sit in uncertainty, and it's taken me a long time. When I first started realizing this, I struggled with emotional eating again. This was only last year or two ago. Struggled with emotional eating again, and I knew it was because I was feeling uncertain, and so I've had to navigate out of that and learn to sit in that. Which I don't know if that will ever not be a struggle, to not know. Nobody knows their future, but to really not know what's happening in your life week to week is kind of annoying.
Yeah, a little bit annoying and a little bit scary. So how are you prioritizing? Because obviously you've got like almost like 3 different sets of people that you are trying to keep happy whilst also keeping yourself happy as well. What are you doing?
Don't actually know. No, I'm honestly, for me, I'm just I find communication really helpful. If anyone in my life now I'm super communicative with and super honest with, and I'm just saying how I feel, which is revolutionary. I do certain things, like there's certain things for me that are non-negotiables in terms of my own support tools, yoga, meditation, exercise, these types of things that are super important to me. But realistically, beyond that, I just communicate and I say, I don't know the answer. And I think getting okay with saying, 1, I don't know. 2, I might, but like being wrong, like I might make the wrong decision, and just saying, okay, well, I accept I've made the wrong decision. And I think just having the honest conversations with people. I don't think that we're very good at that, especially if it requires us to be vulnerable and say, well, I'm scared that if I make this decision, this is what's going to happen. I'm scared if I make this decision, that will happen. And to just be, I think, okay with saying, I'm scared, I don't know what I'm doing. I think that's quite freeing, and making mistakes and being okay with it. I think that's all quite freeing. But communication, which is always a hard thing to do, I think, especially in relationships.
It is so hard. And like what I was thinking of then is I think sometimes we can be scared of the response. So we can have the courage to be like, okay, I'm going to communicate this, and I'm going to communicate it in the best possible way, like deliver the I message instead of making it about, pointing fingers and stuff. But then you can't control, and it's that control thing again, how someone else is going to take what you're saying and how they're going to respond.
Yeah.
So my final question to you is, what message would you send back to a former version of Emilia, whatever former version it is? It could be the one who was competing, it could be a younger, but try and think to a point, like a poignant moment, and think, what would you say to her?
So I recently did a big block of therapy, and I found some stuff about my younger self that really freaked me out a little bit. And a lot of my behaviors came from this fear of loneliness. Like, I'm quite shocked by that because I don't feel lonely at all. So I feel like I would probably go back to like my youngest self and just you know, say it's okay, like you're always going to be loved and you're always going to love. And I think everyone could do with hearing that sometimes, of just like there's hopefully always someone there that loves you and you're connected with. But also I'd probably just say, you know, this will pass and you'll be just fine. You know, I wouldn't really want to change anything. But I think it's always nice to think of your younger self in any way and just remind them that they are loved and that they're safe. And so I would probably do that. But I do try and do that sometimes with meditation and therapy. And I think we could all be better at kind of nurturing that inner younger child. So I do try and do that. But yeah, I think we just all need a reminder that things will pass. Things will be okay again. Hopefully.
I will be fine again. I will have some certainty. So honestly, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. Where can the listeners find out more about you? Where is best to access you? And yeah,
well, thank you for having me. It was so nice to actually have different perspectives and different conversations. So thanks for that. The best place is Instagram, really. Emilia Thompson, PhD. And on my website, emilia.fitness, you can get some free, like I said, those journaling prompts and things like that. If you want to get some free resources, you can get them all on there. But I'm most vocal on my Instagram.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much for listening in, and please do go and give Emilia a follow.